Hi, this is Dr. Sana Hashmi, and this week in my Print on China column, I took a closer look at how China is interpreting Pakistan's growing tensions with Afghanistan, where a number of people have killed at the border, and why, in Beijing's view, India might actually be the hidden factor driving it all. Through my research on Chinese platforms, this isn't being seen as just as a simple border dispute. It's increasingly described as a part of a much wider regional realignment, and one that involves India's growing engagement with the Taliban. And many online commentators in China, they are linking the recent visit of the Taliban foreign minister Amir Khan Muttaqi to India with the latest escalation between Islamabad and Kabul. So the common thread in much of the discussion is that India's role in shaping this evolving situation is central. So no matter what is happening between Pakistan and Afghanistan, India's role, India factor is something that is being analyzed very closely. So, to quote a scholar, Wang, who's a researcher at the China Institute of Contemporary International Relations, he put it this way that Mutaki's visit marks a gradual build-up of contact and trust between India and the Taliban. But he also warned that this doesn't mean India is about to formally recognize the Taliban government. Rather, it's about exploring where cooperation could happen in the future. So it's a slow and steady progress towards what they are calling eventual normalization of relations between Indian government and Taliban administration in Afghanistan. But interestingly, though Chinese online discussions are giving less attention to the bilateral angle, be it Pakistan Afghanistan or be it India Afghanistan, and even the visit of Mitaki to India is something that is not actually being seen through the lens of the bilateral relationship. And there is more discussion about how India might be maneuvering behind the scenes. So it is more about the Indian subcontinent regional realignment, the changing dynamics, rather than what is actually happening between India and Afghanistan right now. So many in China believe on the Chinese internet and the strategic community that this is a plot against Pakistan in New Delhi, with Taliban shaking hands with Indian foreign minister. And Taliban Pakistan ties have definitely soured, and Mutaki's visit to India looked like a hedge, a calculated move to balance the Taliban's regional relationship. And many other are also in China argue that India feels uneasy about it was feeling uneasy about Afghanistan's growing involvement with China, also in the China-Pakistan economic project, and specifically after Wang Yi visited Kabul in August, and this is how India is actually reaching out to Afghanistan more and more. And that New Delhi now wants to use this engagement with the Taliban to reassert influence in Kabul, but also to change the situation in the Indian subcontinent. And then another scholar who has been commenting on the South Asian affairs, Leo Zongi from the Shanghai Institute for International Relations, he described Pakistan's position as that of a sandwich between India and Afghanistan. And he's describing Pakistan that is being squeezed by both sides in a shifting regional order. So this is just not a scholarly strategic assessment. Many on the Chinese internet, commentator, analysts are also arguing that India is now seeking to use the Taliban as a counterweight to Pakistan, and perhaps to limit China's Belt and Road Initiative through influence Kabul, and also through reaching out to Kabul. So it's primarily to restrict Afghanistan's involvement in the China Pakistan economic corridor. And for that, India had been quietly preparing for this engagement for months. And in some of the articles, I saw that they are dating back to January, and that the meeting between Indian External Affairs Minister Jaishankar and Taliban Foreign Minister Muttaqi may mark the start of a cautious but meaningful new phase in India Afghanistan relationship, and maybe Afghanistan Pakistan relations. So, interestingly, though, many Chinese internet users are now calling Taliban a terrorist organization in a number of articles. This is something that is being commonly used for referring to Taliban. But when I look back at the articles from August when Wang Yi was visiting Kabul, this was something that was notably absent from the Chinese discourse. There was no mention of Taliban being a terrorist organization. So the Chinese discourse when Wang Yi was visiting Kabul for the tripartite dialogue between China, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, it was Afghanistan and Taliban administration was just referred to as usual regular governments. So the discourse has absolutely changed when Taliban foreign minister is visiting India, and when we are seeing this whatever rapprochement that we are seeing between Indian government and Taliban administration. So apart from the discourse and the use of terminology, Chinese discussions are also full of speculation. There are a number of theories that have emerged out of the Chinese discourse, from strikes and border shelling along the Durand line to talk of the US satellite intelligence providing to Pakistan. So, what is the overarching narrative here? And what the Chinese are discussing at that this isn't simply about border friction that I've already mentioned, but a proxy struggle involving India, Pakistan, and even perhaps the United States. And one Chinese commentator argued that the Taliban's actions signal their role in a kind of proxy war, suggesting that India is actually using Afghanistan Taliban as a proxy against Pakistan. And they also are implying that India lacks the mean to directly challenge Pakistan, specifically after Operation Sindoor, is now doing so indirectly through Kabul. And this particular commentator also noted that Muttaqi's 6 day visit to India wasn't just a simple tool of diplomacy. It was a strategy, it was a stay at home order, a deliberate effort to outline a long term plan that ended with a joint statement squarely aimed at Pakistan. So this visit is squarely being seen as being aimed at Pakistan. So as I already mentioned, there was hardly any mention of what is happening between India and Pakistan, why India is actually reaching out to Afghanistan, barring the Pakistan factor. This was largely missing from the discourse. And so another Chinese analyst named Zhang Chishin, who also suggests that the US is trying to quietly reestablish its influence in Afghanistan. And the reasons, Russia and Pakistan. What the US trying to do is to prevent China and Russia from filling the strategic vacuum that was left after the US withdrawal from Afghanistan. And interestingly, Chinese media have also begun echoing some Pakistani narratives too surrounding the issue. As in, this is something that is not new. We have seen specifically after Operation Sindoor, what happened, how the Chinese outlets, the Chinese strategic community, commentators amplify the Pakistani narrative, and this is how there was so much disinformation with respect to Operation Sindoor and the aftermath of that. And this is something that's actually happening again with respect to Afghanistan, Pakistan. Uh, Conflict right now. So I'll give you some examples. For example, there's an uh, news outlet called Observer. There was an editorial that actually summarized Islamabad's growing anxiety that Afghanistan, by engaging with India, Muttaqi by visiting India, is actually sliding into the role of Indian proxy. So India's role that has been actually talked about Pakistani media is being amplified by the Chinese media. So, in short, from Beijing's perspective, what is unfolding in the Indian subcontinent isn't just another conflict, isn't about the border dispute. It's a reflection of a shifting alliance and of India and the United States emerging as the key external disruptors in a region where China has deep strategic and economic stakes. So, to conclude, I would say that whether this is an accurate reading or a projection of their own concerns is another question, is a different issue altogether. But one thing that is very clear, specifically after reading the Chinese discourse, is that in the eyes of the Chinese analysts, commentators, media, strategic community, the old balance of power in South Asia is being rewritten, and one that might not be entirely favorable to China. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.